Imagine waking up to the sound of roaring engines outside your bedroom window. At first, your groggy brain tells you it's just construction noise from far away, something you can roll over and ignore. But then the ground vibrates under your feet. The house itself trembles. You throw open the curtains and see men in hard hats, bright vests, and massive yellow machines crawling across your driveway like mechanical beasts. One of them lowers its bucket toward your porch steps, and before you can even shout, wood splinters and glass shatters. That was the morning I watched strangers bulldoze the dream home I had spent years designing and building. And they claimed they had every right to do it because of so-called unpaid HOA fees. I can still remember standing barefoot in the doorway, frozen with disbelief. My house, my sanctuary, the place where I planned to grow old, was being ripped apart as if it was nothing but a dollhouse. I shouted, screamed, begged for them to stop. The workers wouldn't even look me in the eye. They had papers, orders, signatures from the homeowners association. The HOA said I hadn't paid fees I never agreed to in the first place. They acted like it gave them the right to wipe my life off the face of the mountain. You have to understand something. This wasn't just some generic suburban home. It was a mansion I had poured everything into. I grew up with nothing. My parents worked themselves to the bone, and even then we barely scraped by. For me, success meant building something permanent, something that would stand as proof that all the sacrifice and struggle meant something. I bought land high in the mountains, overlooking valleys that looked like painted landscapes. Every stone, every beam, every tile of that house had a piece of me in it. When it was finished, I could finally breathe and say, "This is mine. This is what all the pain was for." And then the HOA came sniffing around. At first, I didn't even understand why they thought they had jurisdiction over my property. My land was technically outside their district lines. But they insisted that years before, the county had redrawn some boundaries, and suddenly my mansion was under their authority. They sent letters. I ignored them. Then they sent fines, claiming I owed annual fees. I refused. I didn't ask for their landscaping, their silly pool access, or their community maintenance. I wasn't even part of their community. My driveway was half a mile long. I didn't share streets, sidewalks, or utilities with anyone. I thought they'd eventually give up. Instead, the HOA doubled down. They threatened liens, then foreclosure. I laughed in their faces. "You can't take what isn't yours," I told them. I didn't realize how vindictive they could be. When they couldn't bully me into paying, they decided to destroy me. And that's how one crisp morning without warning, I found bulldozers leveling everything I had built. Neighbors gathered at the bottom of the hill, some horrified, some smug. I'll never forget the sight of one particular board member, a woman named Karen, yes, literally, standing there with her arms crossed, smirking as my home turned to rubble. "Should have paid your fees," she said loudly enough for me to hear. My blood boiled so hot I thought my skin would split. The aftermath was worse than the demolition itself. I stood in the wreckage, surrounded by broken glass and crushed beams, feeling like my chest had been hollowed out. Years of sweat, years of planning, millions in investment, gone in a single day. People told me to move on. Insurance wouldn't cover it because the demolition had been legally authorized. The HOA gloated openly. They thought they had taught me a lesson, that they could flex their power and watch me crawl away. But I wasn't crawling anywhere. The more I sat in the ashes, the more a different kind of fire built inside me. They thought they had won. They thought they could destroy me and walk away laughing. They had no idea what kind of storm they had unleashed. Revenge doesn't come all at once. It starts with grief, then hardens into rage, and finally sharpens into cold determination. I started with research. Every HOA has bylaws, legal structures, and corporation documents. I dove into public records. I hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but one who specialized in real estate and corporate law. Together we started pulling threads one by one. The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. The HOA wasn't just greedy, they were corrupt. Their incorporation papers were a mess. They had been illegally collecting fees outside their official boundaries for years. They had filed amendments with forged signatures. Their treasurer had lost tens of thousands of dollars from community funds, money that conveniently ended up in his brother-in-law's contracting company. And the best part, the demolition of my mansion had been greenlit without proper judicial review. They had signed off on it internally, convincing a local judge with falsified liens. I could have sued them for damages right then. But I wanted more than money. I wanted obliteration. I wanted to salt the earth where their HOA had stood so no one could ever wield that kind of petty power again. We filed lawsuits, plural, civil suits for damages, criminal referrals for fraud, embezzlement, and falsification of documents. My lawyer was ruthless. He connected with state officials who had been waiting for a chance to nail corrupt HOAs. Suddenly, it wasn't just about me. It was about every homeowner they had ever bullied. People came out of the woodwork with stories: illegal fines, harassment, selective enforcement, threats. The HOA had made enemies for years, and I had just lit the match that brought them all to my side. The court battles dragged on for months. Every hearing was like peeling back another layer of rot. I sat there in the courtroom, watching those smug board members squirm. Karen, the one who had laughed as my house fell, looked smaller every day. Their lawyer tried to spin it, but the evidence piled too high. Bank records, emails, witnesses. One by one, their lies collapsed. The turning point came when the state attorney general's office filed to revoke their incorporation entirely. Not just fines, not just criminal charges, dissolution. It was the death penalty for an HOA. When the judge announced the order, I swear you could feel the air leave the room. Their district was erased. Their authority gone. Their assets were seized. Their personal bank accounts were frozen, and every one of them faced charges that could mean years in prison. The best part? Some of the funds recovered from their embezzlement scandal went toward restitution. That meant they had to pay me directly for the destruction of my mansion. Imagine the irony. The same people who laughed as they bulldozed my dream now had to cut me checks under court supervision. I won't lie. The money felt good, but it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about standing in the ashes of my old house, looking out at the mountains, and knowing the people who thought they could destroy me had destroyed themselves instead. Do you know what it feels like to watch someone who held power over you crumble into nothing? It's better than any drug, any high, any fleeting thrill. It's justice in its purest form. I still remember Karen's face in that courtroom, pale and trembling, her lips pressed tight as the judge declared their HOA dissolved. She didn't smirk then. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, realizing her empire of control was dust. I've since rebuilt, not the same mansion. Something smaller, simpler, quieter. But I kept one thing from the ruins, a single scorched beam, twisted and cracked. It sits in my study, a reminder of two things. One, never underestimate how far corrupt people will go to maintain control. And two, never let them convince you that you're powerless. Justice isn't always served neatly. Sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail. Sometimes you have to dig through endless paperwork, sit through endless hearings, and endure sleepless nights wondering if you're crazy for pushing so hard. But when that moment comes, when the gavel falls, when the guilty faces break, when the power shifts back to where it belongs, it's worth every ounce of suffering. The HOA bulldozed my mansion. In return, I bulldozed their entire existence. And if you ask me which loss mattered more, I'll tell you this. I lost wood and stone. They lost their empire, their freedom, and their pride. That's a trade I'd make every time. So if you've ever been pushed around, if someone's ever tried to erase your worth, remember my story. Remember that even when you feel like nothing but rubble, you can still rise from it and bring down giants. And if this story gave you chills, hit that like button, drop a comment about the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen, and subscribe for more. Because the world is full of people who think they can crush others without consequences, and I'm here to remind you, karma always catches up.